All right, guys, very excited to be back in the studio today. And to help me with this, I have my co-host Brad here with me today. How you doing, buddy?
Hey, Jonathan, I am doing quite well. Yeah, what's going on in your world today?
It's funny, the kids are in preschool, both of them.
Ooh.
So as you know, 4 years ago when we started, both of your kids were already in that phase. And there was a little bit of envy as I was starting parenthood and realizing we're not in that phase. There was no more time where mom and dad or Jonathan and Danny are in a scenario where there's not kids around, and it was going to be a long period till we got there. We're now kind of there testing the boundaries. Our son is in preschool, several days a week, and our daughter is in preschool 2 days a week. There's 2 days of overlap, and this is literally the first time that we've taken the advantage of that space, and we went and got breakfast together. We did that this morning, and it was kind of like the doors of possibility. I wouldn't say they opened up wide, but you got a glimpse.
Oh
You got a
man.
glimpse of what might be on the other side of that space. So it was pretty cool. We experienced that this morning.
Oh, that is fantastic. Good for you guys. That's yeah, it's so interesting, right? Like when you have kids, you obviously hold on to the times because you know they do slip away, but yeah, like every little bit of almost like freedom that you get
Yeah.
back, right?
Yeah, that's exactly it. Yeah. I don't want to feel guilty about this, but I
No.
think most parents can relate. Like, and
Oh
there's
man.
something special about the fact that you don't even need to figure out the babysitter situation. You know what I mean? Like, it wasn't even, you don't even have to go through the Rolodex and figuring out, are you going to lean on your relatives this time? Are you going to find someone in your network? You know, get a babysitter? No, no, no. They just happened to both be occupied, and we took advantage of the window. And we did one of these things that we used to call conversation. You remember when you used to have
Wow.
conversations, extended conversations? But wait. I wanted to tack onto that. We conversed about yours and Laura's meals, the
Ooh.
recipes that you and Laura put together, because that's been a project that Danny and I have been tackling. And specifically, Danny, I would say she's really been leaning into this the last 2 months, is like making it a goal to make all of the Barrett top 50 meals.
Really?
And yes, this is true. And as an observation, the Barrett top 50 meals do not have 50 meals listed, we have observed. So it's just kind of worth pointing that out a little
Yeah, that is very, very true. A slight misnomer with the Barrett Top 50, but yeah, to fill everybody in real quick, people who are new listeners, we have long, Jonathan, since really the very beginning of Choose a Vibe, we've talked about really saving money by cooking at home being one of the pillars of FI, one of the ways to just save significant amounts of money on one of the biggest line items in your budget. So, my wife Laura loves to cook; it's one of her absolute passions. She's always looking for new recipes and things that fit into our, let's say, mythical or top 50. So as you said, it's not exactly 50 right now, but basically we're always looking for like A+ meals that Laura can cook at home that are relatively easy to cook, delicious, and relatively inexpensive. Some people think preposterously inexpensive, but I think relatively they're sub $3 per person per meal. We always kind of said $2. I think the more fair way to look at it is between $2 and $3 per person per meal. And yeah, I mean, this is what we do all the time. So what you were actually saying was we have on the website, Laura's put together 30 of them so far. She's actually put together 40, but we only have 30 on the website as of now. But so since I cut you off completely, Danny has been going through those 30. Is that what you're telling me?
and enjoying it, like
Nice.
genuinely, because I think one of the things you guys did a great job of, and it's is you picked recipes that don't have like 40 ingredients, and you got to find something that you've never purchased before, never seen before. You don't even know what it is. You don't know, you're gonna like, oh, we're gonna need a Whole Foods in order to find this. No. Like they're delicious meals, and they're relatively inexpensive. And so, yeah, she's had fun making them. They're amazing. They have amazing flavor. And we actually, because we were making all of them in a somewhat shorter timeline, I was like, Danny, we should rank these. Like we should, like what's our favorite? Like
Oh
how
boy.
would we, like which ones would make it onto our top 10? From the Barrett top 50, these are our top 10. And I don't have a full top 10 list for you, but I did, just for people that are watching this, from thinking about this from the outside. I was like, well, maybe I could pull up my favorite five right now and just give them to you guys, just, to kind of encourage you to maybe take the plunge and try it. I mean, this is a completely free resource. Brad and Laura just did this as kind of an active service. They've, saved themselves a lot of time and money by putting these together. They shared them with us. We begged them to share them with the larger audience, and they took the time to go ahead and put it out there into, a recipe and a PDF. So I think it'll save you a lot of time and a lot of money. we're doing them. And so I'm just going to share with you, Brad, if you want. These are 5 that really stand out to me. And I could go 1 through 5, but I think we'll just kind of all say these are the top 5 right now, personally. And so here they are. Number 1, spicy chicken tortilla chip casserole.
Ooh.
Number 2, elbow macaroni with crispy breadcrumbs and broccoli. Number 3, and this is a good one, oven roasted chicken shawarma. And I know that one holds a special place in your
Oh
heart as
yeah.
well. Number 4, peanut chicken lettuce wraps with ginger garlic sauce. And number 5, this is one we just had, and I was completely blown away. It was outside of my normal flavor palette. It was unexpected. And I'm telling you, it's like, damn, we got to make this again tomorrow and maybe the next day too. Like, I think I could have this, once or twice a week and be a very contented person. And it's Indian butter chickpeas. This one just snuck up on us and it was just amazing. And we made one tiny little modification to that one. Danny added potatoes to that one as well, but it's a vegetarian meal. I don't know if it's vegan, but it's definitely vegetarian. And it was just a flavor like sensation that I don't think existed in my life prior to this recipe. So those are our 5 so far from the top 50, but we're really making it a thing to make all of them. So yeah, we have 30. Let's get the other 10 and let's expand this out to 50 so we can really, churn and burn through them.
Huh. Well, first, very impressive. Opening yourself to new experiences, new taste palettes. I'm very, very impressed. That's cool. Yeah. Well, like I said, we have 31 through 40, so hopefully we'll get those on the website in the next couple days or weeks. We'll certainly make that happen. But we didn't mention, so choosefi.com/meals. So if you just head to choosefi.com/meals, you can download the PDF of this. And like we said repeatedly, it's 30 recipes, pretty easy to make, pretty inexpensive. And yeah, I mean, these are some of my favorite things. So it's cool. It's interesting, Jonathan, to see a lot of the overlap. So obviously, that tortilla casserole is one of my favorites. I know I've actually been at your house when Danny's made that, so I know she likes that one. And the shawarma is probably my number one favorite meal, I would say. But it's cool actually going through, paging through this PDF right now and seeing some that we actually haven't had in a while that I absolutely love. There's a quick rotisserie chicken gumbo that's phenomenal. Like absolutely. I mean, that's a certainly top 10 for me. Laura's lemon chicken is a classic. So yeah. Anyway, it's funny. I'm like salivating here. It's lunchtime as we're recording this, and
We
I
got
just
started a little late today. All right, it's
a
fine.
little bit late, little bit late. I just got back from CrossFit, which actually, Jonathan, since we're kind of, as you started this conversation, having that time, right? Like it's an interesting thought of, okay, the FI lifestyle, what this means for you. What does it mean as your kids get older, if you have kids, or just different seasons of the year? As our friend Jillian Johnsrud is always talking about, different seasons of life. I even think, in terms of down to like the seasons of the year. And I've had interesting conversations with my kids about this because they, as it's well chronicled, we love our summer pool, right? Like as you like to kid with me, we frolic at the pool all summer long. And it's the best time of our year. But I was trying to explain to them, because especially my older daughter Anna was just distraught when the pool closed, because I mean that is her happy place, right? Like that is literally her favorite thing of the entire year. And when it closes, it's as if something, a little portion of that season died, right? And it's like, I was trying to explain to her that part of life is having these different seasons and looking forward to it. If the pool was open, and I'm using this as but one example, obviously hopefully people are not thinking that I'm merely talking about the pool, but the act of looking forward to it, it's, think about like anticipation and how much like you anticipate travel that's coming up, and the planning and the fun and the thinking about it. Like, there are lots of psychological studies that show like that is really a significant portion of the enjoyment of travel or anything, is that anticipation. And also, as we saw as the end of August came, like a lot of people started getting tired of the pool. It's not the same enjoyment as in the beginning of June when everybody's thrilled to be there. And if it was open 12 months a year, I was trying to tell Anna, like, imagine how few people would go, even maybe come June again the next year, right? So there is something about that absence makes the heart grow fonder type thing that I've never actually thought about like this seasonality in life and like looking forward to even, I'm thinking about my wife, like looking forward to fall weather and, putting on like a cozy sweatshirt and blanket as we're, sitting outside on the porch, all these little things that like, if it was all just the same constantly, like, so that's a long way of saying, I don't know where this even came from, Jonathan, but like, this has been on my mind recently. And it's funny that you mentioned that about you and Danny, like you have this new season, right? And you have, even though it's only a couple hours, right? It's like maybe what 6 hours a week at most, where both kids are in preschool,
Yeah.
but that's 6 hours you didn't have before, right? And I mean, that's magical in and of itself. But even for people who aren't or aren't working from home or don't, you can look for these little times, right? Like I think that would be my takeaway is, hey, where are there little times where we can work in this something different, right? Because I'm sure it felt good. You could have had breakfast at home, out on your screen porch, and it would have been great. But I'm sure it felt really cool to go out as adults, right? To go out for breakfast together.
My wife was starved for conversation. I felt a little bad. It's like it was awesome. Yeah, it was a great time. And I agree with your sentiment around the seasonality, both of the season but also of life, and really precious, appreciating what that season is offering you. It will not be there forever, and I think there's a call to action here for all of us to figure out what does it mean to be present, to appreciate the obstacles, to appreciate sometimes the pain and the frustration that comes with it, because it's there for a season. It's giving us an opportunity to work through something. It might be a season you can never get back. What is that? What does that actually mean for you? And when things are easy, when things are when you're coasting, if you can appreciate what that opens up for you, but also realize it's when things are frustrating or when things aren't working or when you're failing at something that's providing you an opportunity for growth, right? It's very rare that we grow as a person when everything is just perfectly easy and perfectly simple. Unless maybe there's an opportunity for us to figure out, because we're coasting, because things are easy, it's finally created space for us to be intentional, right? If you it doesn't that doesn't have to be because things are easy, I'm not going to learn anything, but it will be unless you grab that season by the horns and say, don't take this for granted. Appreciate this for what it is, an opportunity, and then figure out what is it that you want to do with that. I think there's some balance there that really provides us an opportunity to grow as a person.
Yeah, Jonathan, that's interesting, right? That really struck me because I think, as I've said so many times, I crave simplicity in life, right? And I think so many good things come from moving towards simplicity, but that doesn't mean complacency necessarily, right? Like having, as you're saying so aptly, like having that space, which I would argue comes from a significant portion of simplicity, of moving towards that, of moving towards just having things operating in the background, right? Like we talk about putting your finances on autopilot and auto pay and sending money here. So you don't have that cognitive load all the time, right? Like I've talked about using that app Todoist hundreds of times because I don't have the cognitive load of, oh, I have to do this next week, and then 75 days from now I've got to renew my CPA license or my registration for my car. Like it's all in Todoist, even down to like literally this week. Renew passports just came up. I mean, Jonathan, this is a once every 5 to 10 year thing. And like it literally just came up. I'm like, oh wow, I never would have noticed that. So anyway, cognitive load reducing, right? So you have space then to challenge yourself, right? Because as you're saying, like that's the interesting give and take here of simplicity and creating space. And some people might say, oh, it's just simplicity. Like, but it's not. It creates a space so that you can challenge yourself, right? Because I mean, have you, and this might be a controversial statement. I might be like slightly wrong, but like, have you ever really been proud of yourself from accomplishing something that was easy? I haven't. I mean, to me, it's I'm proud of myself when I accomplish something that I don't think I can do, or something that's challenging, or something that I had to work on. And again, there might be random anecdotes where I'm slightly wrong. I'm not saying this is 100%, but that's the give and take here, right? Like you have the space then to work on something challenging, or even just taking challenging aside. You have the space when you have everything on autopilot and things are good and you have money saved up and you're not stressed constantly, right? You have the space then to figure out, hey, what do I want my life to look like? Right? Who do I want to spend time with? What do I want to do? What is the next 20, 50, 70 years of my life look like, right? Like most normal people who are working 9 to 5 or worse and are living paycheck to paycheck or worse don't have the space to think about those things, right? So, I mean, that is amongst many of the fundamental bedrocks of FI. I mean, that might be the number one, that you have that space to think about, hey, what does my life, what should my life look like?
I think one of the more countercultural pieces of this community is the value that we place on our time and freeing up our time, not just in our golden years, but really, over the next decade. What can we put in place, put ourselves on a roadmap to really own our time at the end of the decade, and hopefully get a measure of that control even throughout the process. And we're living in a culture that craves and idealizes busyness. A successful person is probably someone on a career track that involves a six-figure income, but a 100-hour work week, and will be on that 100-hour work week for the next 20 years until they reach partner. And even then, they're going to be gobbled up with all the other things that they're stuck in. And then at the end of 65, now you get to go have your time, and we place less emphasis on maybe that earning potential. Not to say some of us don't, want to earn a ridiculous amount of money, but we very much look at the time commitment and the obligations that are going to come with that. And we say there's got to be a balancing act. When I was in college, picking out my career, it felt so linear. The tools at our disposal to make a great income were tied to lots of student loan debt, and they were tied to very long college paths, and then they were tied to a very fixed linear career where you were not going to be able to have quite as much space. But now, I mean, we're in the time that we're living in right now, that does not have to be the case. I mean, you can just look around you and you really can design, you can take a look at Brad, you started out with, what do I want my life to look like? Okay. What are the tools at my disposal that are going to allow me to get there? And when I think for you and I, when we were growing up, like our identity was almost inevitably tied to our career, and I think in the FI community, we've almost shed that like entirely. I just don't think people wear their career as their identity in this community to the same degree. People shift careers. People that had 10 years pursuing one thing found the concept and realized, no, that wasn't my ultimate goal, to get partner in this at the age of 65 and be making $1 million here, but never be able to see my family and be commuting, 4 hours a week to that, metropolitan, hub, and spend all my time in my commute or in transit and whatever. No, I want to actually enjoy my years. I want to have some of that space. I want to do. And so like, okay, let's reset and rewind. For some of us that already are stuck in on that, we're just trying to build up a little bit more margin so we can reevaluate. Are we going to stay on this course? Are we going to pivot? Are we going to do something else? When we're talking to our kids about their career track, we're going in intentionally. We're saying, look, I didn't have this information, and my parents wanted to be architect, engineer, doctor, lawyer. Those are my options. Count. There you go, Brad.
Throw me a bone. Thanks.
Yep. Those are my options. And now, as a parent talking to your kids, we're saying, I don't even know if you need to do to college. I'm not saying you can't, but I don't even know if that's a necessity. And look, trust me, I want what's best for you. I want you to succeed. I want you to have a better life than I had, right? That's what we all want. We want more stuff for our kids. I don't know if it's going to look like the traditional path that was shoved down my throat for the last 20 years, because all of my peers that did that and were successes are stuck in. They're stuck, and they're trying to figure out how to unwind the student loan debt. They're trying to figure out how to unwind the, too aggressive mortgage that they picked out and all the financial choices that they locked themselves into for 20 or 30 years. They're trying to unwind it. Do you need to get locked up in that system? Is there another way that you could approach the problem? And I think we start having these conversations a little bit earlier on. What are your goals? What is freedom going to look like for you? What is lifestyle design going to look like for you? How much is a career, and how much of it is your core identity as a human being? These are really important conversations. We start having it early on. And if we explore that, it allows us to make drastically different choices about what might be possible.
Yeah, you said in there about unwinding, right? And financial choices that people lock themselves into. And I think that's a lot of like the keeping up with the Joneses and also the lack of financial knowledge that most people have, right? And also like it's so interesting how so many people in society conflate, oh, somebody's rich because they make a lot of money, right? And I think that's another thing that we might kind of counterculturally look at here for us. And I think really upon any kind of further inspection, this is pretty obvious. But someone's wealthy because they have a net worth, right? It's not because of what income they're earning, right? If somebody is earning $100,000 a year and they're spending $120,000 a year, could anyone with a straight face argue that that person is wealthy? I don't think you could. Whereas somebody who's making $40,000 a year and is saving 50% of that, right? $20,000 a year, that's going to compound to financial independence pretty darn quickly. So I think that's kind of another, right, kind of interesting rethink. And no, obviously, that's also not to say that somebody who's making more money can get to financial independence, right? They have more space to make changes. I'm not an idiot. I'm not arguing not arguing that, but I think it's so interesting, and it strikes me like I think back to like my brother when he first graduated from college, and you know he went to a great school, he went to Tufts University, and you know he didn't know what he wanted to do after he got out of school, and he was a waiter for a decent bit. I forget precisely, but it was like a year or two while he was going back to get a master's in education. And I mean, he saved virtually everything. And, you know, this was a waiter at like the Ground Round on Long Island at that point, and like this, you know, cheeseball, you know, place. And he was saving a boatload of money. Right. And somebody like that who's 23, 24 years old with a 20 to $40,000 nest egg, like that person's wealthier than a lot of the people who are coming in there spending every dollar, right? But like we don't think of it like that because as you're saying, we think of what are those prestigious professions, right? And you listed the you know many of the obvious ones, but and this is not to say there's anything wrong with those professions. Obviously, you know, I'm a CPA, you know, my father was an attorney. Like I'm not saying there's anything wrong with them. It's just our focus is on savings because it's really hard to screw up your life financially when you have a 30, 40, 50+% savings rate, right? Like we've talked about this so many times. Like we're not perfect people, Jonathan. You know, I've made catastrophic financial mistakes. Like I mean truly catastrophic. But yet, savings rate to a large degree cures all, right? You save money. And, you know, I wish I could take back those mistakes. Obviously, on some level, they were learning. And, you know, I don't fully wish to take them back, but savings rate cured that stupidity. So it's to me, that's why we focus so much on savings. And that's not just the stereotypical like cut every dollar and live this horrible life, right? Like because oh, you're saving money on the path to fire, right? Like, you know, you and I, Jonathan, have rejected that many years ago. We look at that gap, right? It's okay. The easiest low hanging fruit for most people getting started is cutting expenses to some degree, not to a point of deprivation, but there's always some fat there. But clearly, you can also earn more money, right? It's a simple equation, and you can speak to it more eloquently than I do, but or than I can. But it's you know what you earn minus what you spend equals that gap, right? I look at that as your savings, and there's a couple different ways to look at that, right? But at its essence, this whole thing, that equation is really simple.
If you think about it as a continuum, we start out by recognizing that it's not about how much you make, it's about your savings rate, and that, you know, net worth is more important than income. And then you know, and rather than income level. So savings rate leads to net worth. All right. So then we also realize that net worth is directly correlated to our time, the value of our time, right? It gives us a way to reclaim our time. So our goal was to get a net worth, but really the net worth was just a measure that we could use to say how much of our time have we reclaimed. Because we have this net worth, that is now time that we don't need to trade for money. Represents time that we no longer are required to trade for money. Okay, great. So time is our luxury. And then you now what you've done is you've almost graduated out of even looking necessarily at the net worth. And I'll point to an episode that we did. It's episode 248. I had to look it up, one by memory. 248, Laura Oldani. She writes over at Rich and Resilient Living, and she pointed out to us that effectively, and I'll get into this a little bit more succinctly after I go the long-winded way, but basically said Your self-worth is more than your net worth, right? Your self worth is more than your net worth, and you are more than your financial capital. So we've become very good at acquiring our financial capital. We've started to build out a net worth where we've recognized the importance of using that to reclaim the ultimate luxury, our time. And then now with our time, again, now Brad, we're back in that coast lane a little bit, right? We are now afforded the luxury of spending all of our time watching all of the Netflix archives and playing video games. Like if we wanted to. There's no growth there, but that is an easy way to approach it. But you are more like you need to think outside the lens of at this point financial capital, and there are many different types of capital that you have access to. Different types of social capital. How big is your network? How big is your community? How engaged are you? These are the types of things. Are you focusing on self and personal development? What opportunities does that afford for you? I think it give what we've done by laying this groundwork by realizing, all right, first, your income is irrelevant if you're not saving anything. High income, low income. If you're spending right up to your eyeballs, you're making no forward progress. All right, great. So we focus on our savings rate. Now we realize that our net worth is an analog for our time. We realize the importance of time. What are you doing with that time? Because the next fork, I can't tell you how many people, I'm fault guilty in this too, at varying times, all of us do it various times, have always said, if I had more time, I would do XYZ goal. I'd have some fitness goal. I'd go to CrossFit more often. I focus on my health. I'd finally cook at home. We finally get the time. I finally have those hard conversations that I've been meaning to have. I'd build these relationships. And as soon as you're afforded the time, you don't do any of it. You do absolutely none of it. You literally do default to video games and Netflix. All right. What a waste. What a waste of the opportunity, right? Not that any one of these you need to silo to the exclusion, but if you're not taking these things that were important to you when you said, I don't have time, now you need to confront the fact that I am actually, as a human, inherently lazy. Like, and I actually, there's something that needs to pull you back in. Don't fall into that trap, right? Financial capital and time are not the end game if it's not well used. What does well used look like? Well, it's a personal choice, personal decision, but it's why you see us pivot on the show so often from the money piece. Here's how to save the money. And then here's now how not to waste the opportunity that you've been afforded. It's a privilege. We are sitting in a seat of privilege to be able to have the space and the bandwidth to talk about these extra things. Because when you're paycheck to paycheck, and you're literally struggling to keep your head above water, it's just about getting that crisis fund in place. It's getting those payday loans off your back. It's paying off that credit card balance. It's there. And so, yes, give you the tools to do that. We need to talk about earning more. Let's go back and have that conversation. Let's get you there. At some point, though, don't fall into that trap that's just, I have all this time. I wonder if Netflix has anything new because I'm caught up. I mean, if think about being caught up on Netflix, what that represents in the amount of time that you've allocated.
Yeah, that would be interesting. And what you're really saying is, and what we're saying here is, it is about a life well lived, right? However you define that. And I think that's the critical part, is there's no prescribed path to financial independence. It is whatever you define that life well lived. And there's always a balance, right? I mean, Jonathan, obviously we're not saying don't watch Netflix, right? Like I think watching TV is certainly like in tiny little bits. Like Laura and I, we actually, it's hilarious. One of our resolutions was to watch more TV together because as
Womp,
ridiculous,
womp, womp.
right? It sounds
Personal
ridiculous.
development guru Brad Barrett advises everybody watch more TV.
Seriously, from from 0 minutes a week, and not by choice, but to like, we're trying to watch just like one show together because we enjoy it, you know. But and I know it sounds ridiculous on the face of it, but like, we're trying to find that balance. Like, and for us, that's like 20 minutes. What is it? I think A Million Little Things or something like that is the show we're watching. And, uh, we're trying to even watch 15 or 20 minutes together because it's just like this nice, quiet, alone time. We talk about the show and yada, yada, yada. But like, again, it's about finding that balance. Did I ever think in any world I would say, I want to watch more TV? No, obviously not. But like, I've cut out so much ridiculous TV that I used to watch. Like, I mean, I think back to the old school days when I had like the original like TiVo. I mean, I used to TiVo every single day, NBC Nightly News, Pardon the Interruption on ESPN, and The Daily Show with Jon Stewart. And I mean, even on super fast, like that's an hour a day. I mean, Jonathan, that's an hour a day of wasted time, completely wasted time. And I mean, ridiculous. And that was every single day of my life. Like when I think back, you talk about seasons, right? Like I think back on my life, like pre kids, and Laura and I do this sometimes. Like, what the hell were we doing with ourselves? Like, why were we not traveling all the time? Why were we not like exploring and doing different things? And like, you get in a rut sometimes, and like you think the normal is good enough or is even better, right? And you don't until you have that benefit of hindsight sometimes, or hopefully when you have that little bit of space to critically look at your life, which we didn't have at that point, then you realize, oh man, maybe watching an hour to 2 hours a day of just TV that I don't need, maybe that's a complete waste. But then maybe 15 years later, I realize, oh, wow, I really do enjoy watching a show, even for 15 or 20 minutes a day with my wife. Like, that's something that's actually valuable to us. So there's always this give and take. Like, none of this stuff is binary. It's not like you shall not watch TV, right? Like, if anybody ever says that to you, like punch them in the face. Like it's
Don't punch
ridiculous.
anybody
Like
in the
no,
face, people,
yeah, yeah,
especially
no.
not for that. That's
Not advocating violence, but like tell them they're an idiot. Basically, like that's it's just there's nothing that's black and white, right? Like you have to figure out what that life well lived is for you and what that balance point is for you, and don't punch anybody in the face.
thank you. So, what's interesting is going back to this idea of like options, financial options, when you're talking about what are my options to earn more income? This is great. I would love to get to this place of quote unquote privilege where I have a little bit more time to think about my net worth and how to expand beyond my financial capital. But I am trying to pick a career. I am trying to, pay off debt. I am trying to earn an above median income. These are the types of concerns that I have, and on this show, it's well documented. We've talked about career options and how to rescale into a new career. We talked about it ad nausea. I won't talk about that right now, but we got just a very impressive voicemail that I wanted to share with you because I think this is the thing, and we're gonna play this voicemail in just a second. But I just wanted to really try to nail this home right now. People are all of us are guilty of this. We're all stuck in an old model that thinks that a career track is a 4-year process that we need a college's permission to go do on the back of a degree that's been hard earned. That's our path to a career. So, what does that mean? It means that if we don't like our current career, we have to go back to college and give them permission to go on a new track, or we have to stay in the same industry and just try to go across the street. But we have to stay in our lane because that's what our degree allows us to. And yes, there's outliers of people that were able to do XYZ, but there's no one's giving us a handbook for how to do this successfully. And what we've seen and have proven out is like you could literally, from a standing start right now, be in a new career making 60 to 80K, like just right out the gate, but inside of 4 months. We usually say 6 months, but inside of 4 months with minimal investment. Like that's just a reality, and that's in a career track. But if someone is trying to like go even faster and they're just thinking I need a side hustle to earn a little bit more income, like what would it take? Like if I know kind of what I would get if I were to do like Uber, or I'll give you guys a funny story. The old I won't even do the story quite yet, but I remember in the old days I used to listen to a lot of Dave Ramsey, and the standard advice was, you got to be gazelle intense, and you got to go, do a garage sale, and you got to, you need to get extra money, go deliver pizzas. I don't care what it takes, but like that was the suggestion. You have a garage sale where you're gonna be able to maybe make a couple extra $100, maybe 600 for some of you, and then you've got deliver pizzas. Deliver pizzas is the path to financial improvement. And we can build on that. You can do even better than that. Much, 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 much better than that. We can expand the advice. So I don't know if Dave is taking suggestions how to expand it, but I don't think you need to be out there on a Friday night at 11 p.m. delivering calzones to those college kids, down in Blacksburg. You can do better than that. All right, Brad. Tell me the origin of the voicemail that we're about to play here.
Yeah, so I got this email. So I guess the origin was we had Nick Loper on the podcast relatively recently, and he was talking about his book $1,000 100 ways, right? And it was 100 different people that he had been in touch with or had been on his show who had all these different side hustles, right? And one of them we mentioned was like a mobile notary signing service. And actually Falcon wrote in to my Fi Weekly And he said, I just wanted to leave you and Jonathan a quick note and let you know that I heard your side hustle episode and I am a personal case study for the notary gig. I first heard about this a little over a year ago on the Bigger Pockets Money podcast. I immediately took action and got my notary license. And my very first month, I brought in $2,000.
Wow.
That's when I realized this was really scalable. And I quit my job to go full time notary, earning $137,000 gross my first year. I am now regularly bringing in ten to $20,000 per month. This is crazy, right? Running my notary loan signing business. So this might have scaled. I don't know if this is just beyond one person. As you can imagine, this has supercharged my path to Fi. Just wanted to let you know in case you were curious about the legitimacy of this endeavor. So this was awesome, and I actually put this in my Fi Weekly every week in my newsletter. I highlight basically five or six people who wrote in to the prior week telling me like what was the action they took to make their life better. So this was one of them, and I had a whole like scores of people write back saying we need more info on what Falcon wrote. So I followed up and we have this voicemail. So that is the genesis of the story here, Jonathan. But ten to $20,000 per month.
Hello, Brad, Jonathan, and the Choose FI team. My name is Falcon, and I'm calling to provide some insight on notary loan signing agent as a side hustle or even a full-time career opportunity. You had Nick Loper on your show talking about 1K 100 ways, and this was one of the things he briefly glazed over so quickly that I think many people may not truly understand the magnitude of potential with this side hustle or career choice. For anybody who doesn't know what a notary loan signing agent is, every time somebody buys, sells, or refinances a home, they're required to sign this massive stack of documents, and many of those documents need to be notarized. So the role of the notary loan signing agent is to show up, verify the signer's identity, and guide them through the paperwork to make sure everything is completed properly. Otherwise, the file can't close. For performing this service, the notary loan signing agent is usually compensated about $75 to $200 for an appointment that usually takes 30 minutes to an hour and a half. Startup costs for this side hustle or career opportunity are relatively low, coming in at about $1,500 or less after you factor in the cost of printers, computers, insurances, supplies, and that type of thing. And training and education is relatively low. You can usually do it in less than 2 months, sometimes significantly less. In my experience, I was able to start this part-time while I was still working my full-time W-2 job. And 3 months into my journey, I was already earning five figures per month.
Wow.
And I've been at this for about 2 years now, and I have consistently been able to earn five figures per month. And I know many, many people who are doing far better than me. So I just wanted to, let everybody know that this is possible. As far as figuring out how the business works and how to get clients, I took a training program called the Loan Signing System with Mark Wills that I heard about on the Bigger Pockets Money show. And that made all the difference for me. You don't need a training program. You can figure this stuff out on your own. But for me, I was able to grow my business really fast with the help of the loan signing system. So I highly recommend it. I just wanted to let people know that this is a fantastic opportunity right now while the real estate market is so hot. And I'm really, really supercharged my path to Fi with notary loan signing agent. I hope that was helpful. And I hope that everybody gets value from this. Thank you guys. Have a great one.
Monstrous value. That's amazing, Falcon. Thank you for sharing that with us and with the audience. And you're right. Nick did kind of glaze over it, but I will say, because I've talked to Nick many times outside of that conversation, that opportunity stands out as an outlier. He references it frequently. A lot of his audience have actually done that and gotten absolutely tremendous results. Although I think Falcon may be on the higher end of what I've heard reported, it is not uncommon for Nick has shared with me many people in his audience have been able to make $1,000 a month, 2,000, 3,000, $4,000 a month. These are real numbers that you see, very often. And you can imagine as you get better at the behind the scenes, structuring your time, building systems in place, how it could scale just based on the dollar per hour return, Brad, of what he described.
Yeah, it's remarkable. I mean, that talk about a great side hustle into possible second career. And actually as part of that second career, Falcon followed up and said, "One major detail I forgot to mention in my voicemail is the complete time freedom this career provides. Setting your own schedule and taking time off whenever you want. Definitely a major FI selling point. So, I mean, goodness, that is really cool.
So I actually want to use what he just said as kind of inspiration to just talk about generally the framework we need to internalize and understand as we move to a world that is post college and post degrees. You may not appreciate that yet, but hang on, a few more years, watch from the sidelines. You will. It's a reality. Doesn't really matter what your opinion on is. It's just coming. It's coming. I'm just trying to show you the framework that's allowing it to happen in a very replicable manner. It's not my framework. It's just what I've observed. And I've now seen hundreds and hundreds of people access this. And what Falcon described is actually proof of concept. And I want to point out for you, Falcon pointed out, maybe do this because the real estate market's so hot. And some of you might rightly point out, great. Well, what happens if, I take this plunge and I were to try it and then the real estate market were to not be hot? It's a framework. You need to understand that the framework would allow you to pivot back into any job market and get any job. And if you're doing that with the benefit of FI, like for instance, if you're using this to outperform, your savings rate means that you can go a very, very long time without earning another dollar. And you really only need about 6 months to pivot into any new industry if you understand, appreciate what I'm about to share with you right now. So I'm going to do it now, translate that back through the lens of what we've seen with the Salesforce career development program, really just Salesforce. Let's look at you doing this on your own. Okay. With any job, and I'll tie it to Salesforce because this is how I've been able to prove this out, but we'll just, any job, here's what needs to happen. If you're going to do this in the absence of college and you want to do this in a tight timeline, certifications where applicable. All right. So in Falcon's case, he got certified. Okay. Now, in the notary space, it's like one-to-one. Certified, learn the practices, get started, right? But in the absence of that, with most careers, if we're going to build a framework, a common framework, and some of these will tie one-to-one to Falcon, some won't. Number two is your personal branding. All right. So we got certified where applicable. Number two is personal branding. Number three is you got to get experience. But you're like, well, how do I get experience if I've never had a job before? It can be volunteer. You need to be able to demo to a prospective employer, not what it is that you think you can do, but what you've actually done. You can do this inside of your sandbox. You can do this for a volunteer employer. You can go out on Craigslist and find a job that you can do. Whatever it is, you need to do it in some capacity. That way you can demo what it is that you're capable of. You need to then, number four, you need to be able to prepare for your interview. People do not appreciate this. If you've nailed the experience and the personal branding, you're going to be given the opportunity to interview. And if you're prepared for that, you're going to crush it. All of these are strategies that need to be built out. And I'll just point out that actually college doesn't really do any of these for you, even though this is actually how the world works. Personal branding a little bit, right? If you get an Ivy League, Ivy League school, et cetera. If you go to your local community college, maybe not so much. Like, is it, I don't know. I'm just saying, I don't know if you're going to get much personal branding from your local community college, but people that go to Harvard tend to drop that they went to Harvard all the time, right? It comes up in conversation. You're talking about sports. You're like, well, I remember when I was at Harvard, like they recognize there's some branding aspect to where they got their actual degree.
Yeah, it's funny. I think another way of describing that is signaling, right? Like a lot of what we do as humans, like interpersonal connections and relationships, like a lot of it is signaling. And that is one very, very obvious example.
Exactly. And then lastly, it's how to actually search for these jobs, right? Like the fifth one is how do I actually find these jobs? Each one of these are skill sets. Now I know definitively what it looks like for Salesforce, but I can tell you because I've seen the people that do this the best land jobs in like 3 months, land jobs like never heard of it before, done in 3 months. But it's a continuum. It's not binary. If you didn't do it in 3 months, it took you a little bit longer to ramp up. You have it done in 4 months. You have it done in 6 months. Like fine, you're doing it yourself. Take a little longer. You have it done in 8 months. But like minimal investment. It's just work a proven process out. This is how all careers have to work. Now, some of them are a little bit more uncharted than others, right? Like some of these are very like in certain industries, we just know this is where you search for jobs. This is where you get volunteer experience. This is how you do your personal branding. This is what specifically you need to prepare for in the interview scenario. So with all of these, you're going to benefit from finding a community that can help you troubleshoot those, or even in Falcon's place, he mentioned a training program that can potentially help you speed it up, but through the lens of ROI. If you do this, college is, it's not necessary for you to pivot in and out of new industries. People need to appreciate this is reality. This is proven out. This is it. This is all there is in the new world that we're actually talking about here. And anything else that you pay for just needs to, how does it help me with these things? If I can do these things, I've got it covered.
Well, right. It's skills and certification and proving what you can do, right? And but I think what you said in there is actually really, really important about community, right? And we've talked about that for years about the FI community and the value of having like-minded people in your life to help cheer you on, to bounce questions off of, if you are looking to start some new enterprise, like there's so much value in having those people, that community. But in Falcon's case, like my question and my limiting belief, Jonathan, would be, okay, I can get the notary designation or whatever you want to call it, but what the heck do I do after that? Like how do I get clients? Like do I have to like knock on the door of the local mortgage company and say like, "Hey, here I am." Like, you know, that would be where I would get stopped, or I would fear that I would get stopped. But having a community of people who have done this before, and again, there's no competition, right? Like it's not a scarcity mindset because in all likelihood, the person you're talking to is 1,000 miles away from you, right? It's an abundance mindset where we can all help each other, right? Like, hey, I figured this out in my local area. You can do that too, as opposed to just, hey, I'm going to hoard all this information for myself. Like that's, I've seen that over and over again, that abundance mindset online. And, of people that I guess like theoretically you don't know them, right? You don't know them in real life, but you get to know them in these communities. And I think the value of that, it's hard to overstate the value of that.
Well, actually, and even in what you said there was embedded another little bit of truth in that we are also conditioned as a society to get this degree or get the certificate, right? Like either one of those is by itself is insufficient. Because the goal with any of these is to generate income, to generate revenue, to land a job. And he had to do that. He had to search for jobs, right? So if we go through the list, again, let's just think through the list. So great. Let's substitute the first one out. All of us, when we go to college, we get the degree, right? So obstacle number one, get a degree, get a certification. That okay, great. Something that says, look, I might be able to do this. All right, but then that's where all of us stop. We get no training on how to, focus on our personal branding so that we can get that Harvard prestige, even if we didn't go to Harvard. We have no training on how to get that real world experience. We have no training on how to prepare for interviews, and we have no training on how to find the jobs. So a lot of people like might hear this and say, "How do I get certified?" But on the other end of that certification, whether we're talking about mobile notary or we're talking about Salesforce, that's where they stop, right? Because the old model just says you just got to get certified. If you build it, they will come. If you get the degree, no, that doesn't work that way. That's why there's four more steps that nobody's taking the time to show you. That's the difference, right? So you have to sort that. And so if we go to Falcon's case, in Falcon's case, he said, I think I took a training program that really helped me lock it up. But you could probably Google or look for, a Facebook mobile notary group. Brad, to your point about community, what's the desired behavior? Let's find a mobile notary group and let's ask some best practices. Like, how do we do this? Let's do some additional searches for how to find jobs, these sorts of things. Let's build out these other four. Write those 5 things down. You're going to need to sort off. And the first one's easy. Get the certificate. But I actually want to point out to you, in many cases, the degree or the certificate aren't even as important as you think they are, and getting the employer to give you a chance. I'll give you an example because it's tied to Nick Loper, and it's also tied to Salesforce in this case. Nick Loper had someone that listened to his show. This fellow's name was Ryan. He listened to this episode and he decided to take the Salesforce challenge and just really focus on this. Really focus on how quickly can I do this. Ryan just landed a job, and I don't know what his exact salary is, but I know it's at least over the $60,000 kind of. That's the entry level amount, and people can make anywhere from 60 to 120, somewhere in that range. So he got a job within 3 to 4 months. He was not certified yet, and his employer knew it. They knew he wasn't certified yet, but Ryan was able to tell a story, and I mean that in a good way. He was able to explain what path he was on, what he had actually done, what volunteer project he was working on, and what he would be able to bring to them, and that he is working on getting his certification. And they believe that he is the type of person that will complete that. And they're like, we're going to be able to get him at a steal because he's still, at this point on his journey, and they need that talent. People think it's the certification, using the story to highlight this, right? And in some cases, there's a legal requirement to prevent you. And that's been the gatekeeper in the past. And it might be true to some varying degree, but so many of us just stop there or think that that's the end all be all, when in reality, unless it's a legal mechanism where someone can't use you in that role legally unless you have that license. So I'm thinking about myself as a pharmacist. I don't care how much you think I might be able to do. You're legally not able to use me as a pharmacist unless I have an active license, right? True gatekeeper status. Okay. That's not the case for most jobs. You need to be able to show what have I done, which means like, yes, focus on getting your certificate. But don't wait on the other four until that's done. They can be done in parallel. You can be demonstrating what you're working on. If you think about some social medias have different functions. If you think about Twitter as someone dropping 200 words or less and dropping this quick shower thought, and you think about, Facebook as people interacting with people. If you think about LinkedIn as a corporate mechanism to create a living resume, a living, CV, you can use LinkedIn as a way to say what it is that you're working on. And if you're working on something in the industry that it is that you're trying to get, to gain access to, it's going to scrape up against what recruiters and other job hirers are looking for. You can use that as proof of work. I'm the type of person that it starts getting you in the habit of building stories around what it is that you're actually doing. You get into the interview, and instead of being ambushed by one question after another, you're actually guiding the conversation around what you've done and what you would like to be able to do for them based on, what it is that their needs are. This is just a way that we kind of grab control when we're thinking about building out our experience in this capacity. This is the new world. This is the world that we're living in. And you got to realize this because it can save you hundreds of thousands of dollars and decades of your life. If you recognize we're trying to get time, we're trying to get savings rate. What's going to keep me from that? Well, if I have to spend 8 years on this career track, and then I'm going to have $90,000 in student loan debt, and I'm going to be making $60,000 or $70,000. So I'm going to take a decade to pay back the student loans, and then I'll start building my net worth. That could be your biggest financial mistake if you ignore the truths, the eternal, literally, like at this point, I would say, I don't know if I could say they're eternal truths because they don't go backwards. I don't know if this was true 20 years ago, but it's true going forward, right? These are living truths, and you got to recognize this. It's absolutely critical. All right, my friends, thanks for joining us this afternoon. Hope you got value from this episode. And again, if you're interested, I know we talked about meals way back at the beginning. Let's close the loop. If you want to try that, and you want to figure out what are your top 5, let me encourage you, just go to choosefi.com/meals. Let's save some money and get better nutrition along the way. All right, my friends, the fire is spreading. We'll see you next time as we continue to go down the road less traveled. All right, everyone, on today's episode, we're going to discuss the art of the career pivot. Welcome to the ultimate crowdsourced personal finance show. This is Choose FI.